Folks, I'm so glad that we are finally, officially, in spooky season because we've got one heck of a horrifying story for today's Dev Diary, the series where I try to make my own video games. So let's start at the beginning of our terrifying tale with the player. They control a magical, disembodied hand in a world inspired by like edgy late 90s era aesthetics. Like a Flash game inspired by Silent Hill or something. Anyway, the player can toss their meat around in the form of meatballs with left click. How many balls the player has can be seen at the top left of the screen along with their current health. The player must use their meaty balls to defeat an everlasting horde of incoming flies, and as each fly is slowly subsumed by the player's meaty balls, the difficulty grows. Sometimes a fly is imbued with an elemental effect and is able to fire projectiles back at the player. Now these nasty little things will go right through the player's balls, and so the only way to deal with them is to either avoid them completely or parry them. By right-clicking, the player can close their disembodied hand into a tight fist, and if they're fast enough, this will parry the enemy projectile, turning it into a player projectile. Parrying projectiles is also the only way for the player to heal, and while in the closed fist state, the player can recollect any nearby meatballs, allowing them to toss that meat again at their leisure. Finally, as the player continues to battle with all fly kind, eventually these buzzy baddies will call in the big guns. The head honchos, these literal pig heads, who are not only tanky but also fire their own brand of smelly projectiles that too can be parried. Now, believe it or not, we've yet to get to the scary part, but we're about to. So while you get ready for the horrors ahead, a quick reminder that if you enjoy the content, supporting me on Patreon is the best way to help me keep making it. Doing so can get you access to exclusives and downloads, and even early access to the weekly Dev Diary videos. So long story short, this concept was born from trying to create a stupid pun for meatball, and from what I've come to learn people call American handball. I don't know, but hand meatball? Anyway, given the aesthetic, I held off until October to release this one. However, in that time, I finally got around to playing the demo for a game called Ball Pit, which is somewhat similar in concept. And I loved the demo so much that I wanted to, at the last minute, change the project from just some weird version of handball into something more like Ball Pit. Enter the horror of it all. Originally, the game was about managing the player's balls, which would grow over time as they literally turn flies into new balls, forcing the player to juggle multiple balls via the parry mechanic. But this was all changed with the addition of elements inspired by Ball Pit, like the spawning of new enemies. It was switched from a wave-based to a constant stream of enemies, and this actually broke the original spawn system as it wasn't designed for this type of thing. Regardless, progress was then tied to the spawning of these chests. Breaking these chests allows the player access to upgrades, and basically because this was kind of rushed, just about every stat that the player would need was added, even if it really didn't make sense, like fire rate. Anyway, these are presented to the player Vampire Survivor style and upgrade their stats accordingly. And it's this last minute pivot, to turn this into some type of clone is what kind of ruined the vibe and the experience in general. The original version was about dealing with chaos that the player makes for themselves, There was a method to the madness. And so ultimately turning what was a rather unique idea into just another horde mode and upgrade loop was a bad move on my part. So it's kind of like seeing a good friend turn into a zombie, for spooky season. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Am I being too hard on myself? Does this actually look enjoyable, or does the original version sound better? Be sure to leave your thoughts and even your ideas of what would have improved the project in the comments. And while you're at it, if you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, and why not subscribe if you're new to the channel. But with that said, brings us to the end of today's Dev Diary, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.